Howdy, students. How you doing? How was your weekend? We're coming up. Uh, Next week is a holiday, so we won't be in class next week. So take a breather, but be safe out there. Reading's in a hot spot, purple. Um, we've got a lot of COVID cases, so be careful out there, especially going home to be with your families if that's what you're going to do. We need you to be back in the class when we get back from Thanksgiving. You'll really have something to be thankful for. You're well. Um, it is the 17th of November, and after we come back, we're only going to have about 3 weeks. So I've got to start getting into the contemporary times, modern times, in the textbook. Yes, we're still looking at the textbook once in a while. Um, there is going to be a quiz. I'll figure it out soon. And the textbook may come in handy. But we're going to be talking about something I'm very passionate about, which is cinema, movies to you. Cinema is a fancy term for it. So today, in the book, in your textbook, on about page 363, it begins postmodern. That's what they call postmodern times now. This would be at the turn of the century, the 20th century, folks, not the 21st century. And it's the chapter heading there is Birth of Cinema. I'm going to also assign you a documentary you can watch. You will probably need to watch it. Put that on Canvas a little later. It's called The Story of Film, The Beginnings. It's on Canopy, I believe. Hopefully you all know how to use Canopy. We've done it before, I hope. Yes, I think we have. It's free to you. All you have to do is sign in with your student ID or your library card, and you get it on your computer. Okay, so look for that, and then I want you guys to start a discussion. Simply, why does cinema matter? Does it? That's the question. You tell me. Make a statement. Think about it. Don't just dive in. And then, if you want to share possibly your personal relationship with cinema, with movies, what is it? You want to share it? Please do. And then reply to two other of your classmates' comment, and make your replies meaningful. Don't just say, "I really dig what you did," or "I like it," or give it a thumbs up. No, why did you like it? Explain it, or why didn't you like it? But be kind out there, guys. Don't make fun of anybody's movie taste, because we all have our weird favorites. I like to call them there are our embarrassing favorites, and we all have them. Whether it's Goonies or Caddyshack, or not that I like those movies at all, but you probably have never heard of those movies. You're too young for them. But maybe your favorite new movies, the new X-Men Part 29, or Spider Boy meets Spider Girl, or possibly Frozen or Little Mermaid. It's okay. No embarrassment here, especially online. We can't see you turn red. Anyway, share your movie experience and tell me why you think, and there's no right or wrong in this, folks. It's just a conversation. Why you think cinema matters, or does it? Cinema is getting to be a long history now, well over 100 years old. Um, Here's a question for you. You invented essentially the movie camera. If you're sitting in a room like I am and you have lights on in your room, think about that. It's all related. The same person invented the phonograph, record players, as I used to call them. Now you would say vinyl players, play your vinyl. You guys are listening to vinyl? I think vinyl's great. It's a hassle because you got to constantly change it, but I'll dig the format because the artwork is cool and people are making vinyl now again for a new generation. This is not CDs kind of killed vinyl in the 80s and 90s, and then MP3s and downloads killed CDs. But I think a new generation are tired of all this digital information that's going out there that's so easy to grab off the internet, and they feel and hear something authentic. And when you listen to a piece of vinyl or a long player on a turntable, you're getting some authenticity that you cannot get off downloading music. I download all the time, but every once in a while, I still buy the occasional vinyl that means something to me. And when I put it on, it is a ritual. It takes time and patience, and it makes you want to listen to the music. It's just not in the background. Anyway, who invented all that? Thomas Edison. That's right. Thomas Edison created the first movie camera, the first um, started creating film. That we'd had still photography before the movie camera, but no way to make it move. And so when you watch the documentary, I want you guys to watch the beginning of film, you'll see how early film was not really film. It was just still images going through a rotation device that made it look like they were moving. They weren't really, but it was the device that made them appear to move. And that's the movie magic. That's still how we're doing it, except for now the device is a hard drive. You get your whole movie on this thing now, an entire Star Wars episode on that. Um, we'll be talking about that. Have we lost anything by putting all our information on that instead of a canister of real film in your hands? That's something we could talk about. Anyway, so yeah, Thomas Edison, and he was back in New Jersey, um, inventing like crazy. He had a factory back there, and he created actually the first what you would call movie studio. It was simply it wasn't much bigger than a trailer. A trailer, what should I say, like an Airstream trailer that you pull behind your car. If you're lucky to get in an Airstream. Um, it was called the Black Maria, and it was essentially a black box that he could rotate the whole building and open up the roof for the sun because they knew then that light was going to play a huge part in the birth of cinema because the film stock they had in those days needed a ton of light to work. And so the Black Maria the ceiling could open and let the light in. Simple as that. Pretty ingenious idea. This is before we shut the doors and made movie studios with artificial light. That's a whole nother aspect of filmmaking. Um, so what are the first films? You'll see them on that little documentary. They're not much. They're just they're not stories. They're just human beings doing something. Um, a woman's dancing. A man and a woman are kissing. Now, when that kissing movie came out in the late 1800s, folks, yes, they have all their clothes on. It's very clean. They kiss for just a moment. It was so risque. This is before they had erotic films. There was no such thing. No porn in those days. Not yet. That was just it scared the hell out of people. A lot of religious leaders thought it was vulgar and already we could see the power of cinema over such a simple act of man and woman kissing each other. Um, we could see the power that it's going to literally change the world we live in eventually. And other people started paying attention. There was the Lumiere brothers in France who really paid attention, and they started developing film in a very speeded up way. They saw the future, and they also saw the future in projecting the images that they filmed um, for audiences. And they are really credited with starting a movie theater. There was no such thing. The little film strips that people were making, like Tom Samuelson, had to be seen through a little individual device that look like this through, and it was called a Nickelodeon. You put a nickel in, and it would show maybe a 30-second clip of a horse running, or a man lifting weights, or a woman dancing, like I said before. And that was the whole story. But people were so fascinated by it, they put another nickel in to see it over and over again. Just like I know how many times you guys have seen Frozen over and over again, right? Okay, so that's how it was then. Lumiere brothers saw this thing that could be massive, and so they started developing the first projector that would actually project an image onto a big screen, so that people could watch it together, a collective, in the same room. That was a revolution. Cinema is a collective experience. It's a collective art form. Usually, this is not so true now. Usually, it takes a collective to make a film: writer, directors, actors, producers, lighting people, people building sets, people doing music. Look at the credits on your average movie right now. There are hundreds and hundreds of people working in each movie, like never before. But before that got going, there was no mechanism to make a film, like a story. But they were starting to stretch these little scenarios of a train leaving a station, or a train going by somebody. And it blew everybody's mind when they first saw those images. It was actually people moving, life around them. One of the first films was done in England, Leeds, Great Britain, and it's just simply people coming out of a factory. It's 1 minute of people coming out of a factory after work. And you'd be surprised how they dress, folks. They're all very formal, not like we are now. They're all kind of like are dressed up, but that's how people used to dress to go to work, even at the factory. And they all seem to be chipper and happy and joking. When you look at old photographs, black and white photographs, everybody's so somber. There's a reason for that. It used to be a pain to take a photograph, because the film was so slow that you'd have to pose for it for maybe a minute long. And so people would pose like that for a minute or two. Why the film finally would capture the photograph. So it was primitive. And so nobody's smiling, because you don't want to hold your smile for 2 minutes. You feel stupid. But in these early films, you actually see people that look like we do, except for it's in black and white, of course. They look like they're talking to each other, they're smiling, they're communicating, and you don't see that in old photographs or even old paintings, really. I mean, some paintings are great and they show that. Van Gogh was great at showing the conversation. Toulouse-Lautrec, the famous French he would show the combination of people interacting, drinking, having a good time, and he captured that wonderfully. But nobody had done it with a camera that shot moving photos. So it was in its infancy. People saw the power of it and what could be, and they were very, very fascinated by the possibilities of cinema. Like most art forms, it tells our collective story. It gives insights in who we are, who we want to be, what our dreams are, our love, our loss of love, our anger, our ambition. It's endless. Shakespeare could write about it and put words on the page, and actors could perform it. Melville could write about it and put us out on a boat chasing a white whale. But a movie camera could show us chasing the white whale. It could show us Macbeth doing his dastardly deeds. So the camera was a voyeur into our own lives like never before. And people paid attention. And within a few short years, it became very ambitious and very commercial. But in the early on, it was a novelty. So pay attention to that documentary I'm going to show you, the story of film. It's just disc one. There's about 6 discs total. We won't have time to go through all of them because they're 2 or 3 hours a piece. But this is the beginning of the film. And so today is the birth of cinema. And we're going to go at least this week. We're off next week. And then we'll probably do cinema the following week too. And that'll be on that. And probably having a quiz on it, or possibly another essay for sure. And I think that's it. Then you just have to do the last 2 weeks of school, which is essentially, I think the 16th or 17th is end of December is it. And you'll have to hand in your final paper, which we haven't assigned yet, but you should be starting to think about. I'm going to make a list of research paper. I'll put out 10 subjects, write about one of them, but not yet. I'll probably do that next week when you guys are all off. And you'll have to do a research paper on it. So there's going to be one more final paper. There's going to be a quiz. And then I think we're on the ending of our essays. Am I not right? I have to go look. Have you guys done 6 essays? I have to go look. If not, you're going to do 7. So that's all coming up, because once we hit Thanksgiving, we come back, it's all pretty much downhill fast from there. I'll do my best covering what I can in cinema. We're going to go fast. I try to go decade at a time. I might have to go a little faster than that because we're not going to have many classes together in cinema, usually about 4. And I can't go through 100 years of cinema by going decade, the 60s and 70s. So I still got the 80s, 90s, and the 2000, 2010, 2020 to do. I still got four more decades to get through in 4 weeks. So there's a lot of material out there. So when we think about movies, what do we think about? What is your idea of it? What is your relationship to movies? Do you have a relationship? Is this something just to be entertained by? Is this something that you just are killing time? Is it something that's deeper than that? Does some of it have more meaning than just entertainment or a time killer? If we're in class together, I'd go around the class and I'd say, why do you go to movies? Someone always says, oh, it's a good way to kill some time. And I go, well, Our time is limited here on the earth, especially now we're in a pandemic. I don't think we should kill time. It's going to die without us. Why help it along? Um, Others will say, "Oh, I like to be entertained." Well, we all do. That's fine. But I think, well, you know what I think. It goes deeper than that. I've studied film all my life since I was literally 8 years old. I went to film school. I've made movies, written and directed films. I'm doing 2 films right now on my own because with the digital world we live in, you could do just about everything yourself now. That way, you don't have to pay people or raise the money to get it, but you can still put out interesting product. Stick it up on Vimeo or YouTube or some film festival somewhere. There's still hope for storytelling with a camera. Maybe you're one of those people who want to do that. It's possible. Only thing that's stopping you is you. Anywho, so the birth of cinema, 1880s, 1890s. Yes, folks, 1890s. There's a good example. I'll show it to you later of some of the first films ever made. The first story that was ever made was probably in 1905, I'm guessing. Trip to the Moon. You should watch it. It's a trip. I'll make you watch it. That's a story by a Frenchman. The Great Train Robbery is another one. It's just a train robbery, folks, set in the Old West. Um, it's pretty primitive, and it was the start of storytelling in cinema. I like to quote a few people that I endlessly quote, people who believe in cinema like it's their lifeblood, like I do. And they're filmmakers usually. One of them is Jean-Luc Godard, who's a famous filmmaker from France, who's pushing 90 now, folks, and he's still working on a new film. Um, he got on the map about 1960 or so with a film called Breathless, and he and Francois Truffaut started a revolution in cinema called the French New Wave, a new way of making films without movie stars or big budget or big fancy studios. They went on the streets and they made films. Whatever it took, he revolutionized a lot of our feelings and thoughts about how important cinema is. I'll talk about them later, not today, but one of his most famous quotes is, and he said this many, many years ago, he said, "Everything is cinema." I'm going to let that sit with you guys. What do you think? Check out the announcements for Canopy. Onward and upward. I'm still grading the papers. That's unending. And remember, folks, everything is cinema. No, really.